You know, we live in an age where just one mistake can get you totally canceled, right? And that feeling of guilt, man, it feels heavier than ever. So today, we're going to break down a really powerful message from Pastor Jay that offers this kind of radical perspective. What if being exposed? What if that isn't the end? What if it's actually the beginning of your deliverance? Let's dive in.
I mean, just let that sink in for a second. Our culture's default setting, it's exposure. And that feels like a final judgment, doesn't it? You see it all the time with celebrities, public figures, heck, even in our own friend groups. But this sermon, it just flips that whole script on its head. The idea is that the very act of being brought into the light, and yeah, that's terrifying, is actually the first step toward real, genuine freedom. It's a total reframing of our absolute worst fears.
Okay, so why does this topic hit so close to home for so many of us right now? Well, it's because we are living in what you could call a modern age of shame. And the fallout? It's just everywhere you look.
So Pastor Jay points to this recent docuseries, you probably heard about it, about a celebrity's huge downfall that had literally everyone talking. And what was so captivating, he said, wasn't just the mistake itself. No, it was the public pile-on that came after. And that really highlights a massive problem in our culture, doesn't it? We're experts at judgment, but we offer pretty much zero path back to redemption. And hey, it's not just a Hollywood thing. The sermon also brought up this image of a tech CEO giving a public apology. You know the type. The scripted words, they weren't the real story. The real story was the raw, visible shame you could see in his eyes. That quiet moment of desperation, when you just know you failed, you've hurt people, and that's a feeling, unfortunately, that a lot of us can relate to. So to find a way out of this whole mess, the sermon makes this absolutely crucial distinction. It's between two words we kind of throw around like they're the same thing: guilt and shame. And let me tell you, understanding this difference, it's the key that unlocks everything else. Okay, so look at this breakdown. Guilt. Guilt is pretty straightforward. It's objective. It says, I did something bad. See? It focuses on your behavior. And honestly, it can be a good thing. It can motivate you to change. But shame, oh, shame is a whole different beast. It's insidious. It attacks your very identity. It's that little voice whispering, I am something bad. That's what makes us want to isolate, to just hide from the world. And you know, this feeling, this sense of being fundamentally broken, it is not a new thing at all. So the sermon pivots. It takes us from our modern-day problems all the way back to an ancient story, a king's story that captures this exact struggle with just breathtaking honesty. And we're talking about King David. Now, this wasn't some minor oopsie. I mean, this was the guy celebrated as a man after God's own heart. And yet, he falls into adultery and then arranges a murder to cover it all up. He actually hid that secret for almost a year. His story is just this stark, powerful reminder that absolutely no one is immune to a devastating moral collapse. And this right here is the heart of his prayer from Psalm 51. Once the jig is up, once he's exposed, David doesn't try to spin it, he doesn't make excuses, he just runs straight to God with this incredibly raw plea. And notice the words he uses. He specifically asks to be washed from shameful guilt. He's acknowledging both the bad thing he did and the deep, ugly stain it left on his very soul. Okay, and this is where it gets really fascinating. The original Hebrew word David used for wash here is kabas. Now, this isn't talking about a gentle rinse cycle. No way. This is the word for like beating or trampling laundry on rocks to pound out a really deep set grime. So David is basically praying, God, I am so filthy. I need you to literally power wash my soul. He knew this stain was way too deep for just a simple, I'm sorry. So David's cry for this aggressive, deep down cleansing, it wasn't just a one-off prayer. As the sermon points out, it's actually part of a much bigger, consistent pattern of redemption that you can see woven all the way through history. I mean, just look at this pattern. It starts right at the very beginning with Adam and Eve hiding in their shame until God covers them. Then it continues with people you'd think are on the margins, right? Like Rahab, a prostitute who isn't just saved but is actually honored in the lineage of Christ. It includes these leaders who failed spectacularly, like David, who we just talked about, and even Paul, who went from hunting down Christians to becoming the greatest apostle. It even goes all the way to the final moments of life, with the thief on the cross being promised paradise. The evidence is just, it's overwhelming. God has this long history of redeeming the most broken people from the absolute deepest shame.
And this entire pattern of redemption, it all points to one ultimate moment, the cross. And this, right here, is where the sermon's message gets so powerful. You see, on the cross, Jesus didn't just pay the legal bill for our bad actions, that's our guilt. He also took on the public humiliation, the rejection, the total disgrace, that's our shame, so that we would never have to carry it ourselves.
Okay, so that's the big picture. But what does all this mean for you and for me, like right now, today? How do we go from just knowing this stuff in our heads to actually living in that freedom? Well, the sermon lays out a really clear, practical path. Pastor Jay breaks it down into 3 essential steps. Okay, number 1, agree. This just means we stop making excuses. We stop minimizing, we just confess and call our sin what it actually is. Simple. Step 2, believe. We have to fully 100% trust that what Jesus did on the cross was enough. Not 99% enough, 100% enough to cover every last thing. And finally, and this is maybe the most important part, walk. This is where we make that daily choice to stop seeing ourselves through the lens of our past failures and start embracing our new identity as someone who is totally cleansed, holy, and deeply loved. And the sermon leaves us with this one last piercing question to think about. When you really look at the evidence, you look at David, you look at Paul, all the others, it kind of forces you to ask yourself, what limits am I putting on God's grace in my own life? I mean, if their stories are true, what failure, what secret, what shame could I possibly be holding on to that's too big for that same redemption? That's a really powerful thought to carry with you. So that's our look into this incredible message about deliverance from guilt and shame. And hey, if any of this resonated with you, I really encourage you to hear more from Pastor Jericho Neither. You can find Believers Faith worldwide pretty much everywhere, on TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, and SoundCloud. You can even reach out directly by email. All the details are right there on your screen. Go check him out. And thanks so much for tuning in.